Let's get real for a second. People love to call spirituality New Age, but the truth is, there is nothing new about it. Spirituality is ancient, older than any book, any temple, any priest. Long before churches and mosques, humans connected to Source directly, through breath, through nature, and through energy. And deep down, I think that's why spirituality threatens the system, because it removes the middleman. You know what's wild and interesting? Whenever people talk about spirituality today, they just love to label it as New Age. Like it's some TikTok trend that just popped up with crystals and moon water. But let's be honest, spirituality isn't new at all. It is ancient. It's older than every organized religion on this planet. It's older than any temple, any church, any holy book that's ever been written. Long before there were religions, there were humans gathering around fires, dancing under the stars, breathing with the rhythm of the earth, and communing with the cosmos. Long before there was doctrine, there was direct connection. They communed with Source directly. No priest, no hierarchy, no middleman. They used breath, sound, plants, rhythm, and intention to connect to the divine. That connection, that oneness with nature, with energy, with consciousness itself, that is spirituality. It wasn't about the rules. It was about relationship with the earth, with energy, with the divine within us all. It's what our ancestors lived by before the word religion ever even existed. Religion came way later. And here's where things get real. It built itself on top of these truths, but it wrapped them in structure, rules, hierarchies, limitations. Religion wasn't created to bring people closer to the divine, at least not entirely. It was created to structure, to govern, and whether intentional or not, to control. And over time, those structures became chains. Very subtle, but strong ones. Chains that said, you need permission to reach God. Chains that said, you are unworthy without the system. And here's the thing. The moment you convince someone that the power to connect with Source lies outside of them, you control them. Think about it. When you remove someone's direct line to Source, you make them dependent on that middleman. On priests, on institutions, on rules written down by a select few. And dependence is one of the easiest ways to create loyalty or chains. You bind their spirit. You train them to seek externally for what was always internal. That is not salvation, that's spiritual slavery. See, spirituality was never about obedience. It was about remembrance. It's remembering that the divine spark is within you. Religion says, pray to God. Spirituality says, you are a part of God. This is why I say religion became that velvet rope. It wrapped itself around ancient truths, polished them, rebranded them, and told humanity, you need us to connect to God. But the truth is, you don't. You never really did. And that's where the clash begins to happen. Because when people start remembering their own power, the system built on dependency begins to tremble. Spirituality is not a trend, it is a birthright. It's the rhythm of your heartbeat, the cycles of the moon, the tides of the ocean. It's ancient wisdom passed down in vibrations, stories, and rituals. The same wisdom that built civilizations long before the first holy book was written. And the reason people call it New Age today? Because if they admitted how old this is, the illusion of authority would just crack. Because calling it new makes it sound naive, trendy, and very easy to dismiss. but it is not new. It's the oldest wisdom on earth. It's primordial, the heartbeat of creation itself. It's easier to minimize something by calling it a trend than it is to admit it predates your institution by thousands of years. Religion gave us structure, but that structure also became a cage. And spirituality is what happens when the soul finally remembers it can walk free. So when someone calls spirituality New Age, what they're really saying is, I've forgotten how old this wisdom truly is. And maybe they've just forgotten how powerful they truly are as well. You want to know why spirituality gets mocked, minimized, or even dismissed so often? Because it's powerful. And real power, the kind that lives within inside of you, is the one thing you can't control from the outside. See, religion as an institution wasn't just built on the faith alone. It was built on structure, on hierarchy, on rules that create order. And order is very predictable. Predictable is controllable. Spirituality, on the other hand, it's wild, it's free. It says you can connect with Source directly. No permission needed, no priest, no middleman. That terrifies systems built on being the only way to access God. Just think about it a little. When someone believes they need a church, they need a pastor, or they need a set of rules someone else wrote to be good enough for God, they can be guided, molded, and yes, freaking controlled. But someone realizes that the divine lives within them, they stop asking for permission and start reclaiming their sovereignty. That's the real threat. Not rebellion, not evil, not New Age nonsense. The threat is a human being who knows they are whole without the system. This is why so many spiritual practices throughout history were suppressed or even demonized. Shamanism, indigenous rituals, feminine power, astrology, mysticism, all of these things were considered dangerous. Not because they were actually dangerous at all, but because they made people powerful outside of the controllable institution. When the church said witch, what they really meant was a woman who remembered her power. When they said pagan, they meant a community that didn't need their priest to speak to the divine. Religion, it does build empires, but spirituality, it builds sovereign souls. And that's why spirituality will always outlast religion, in my opinion, because no matter how many walls get built around it, the flame within us can't be contained forever. The system can try to chain it, but eventually the soul always remembers. You can only keep people disconnected from their power for so long before something inside them starts to stir. We're living in a time where that stirring is turning into a collective roar. We are the generation that is questioning the systems we inherited finally. We're realizing that many of these institutions we have trusted were never built for our liberation. They were built to keep the wheel turning. But something is starting to shift. There's a hunger to remember. We're seeing people everywhere turning back to practices that have existed for thousands of years. Breath work, sound healing, energy work, moon rituals, plant medicine, and ancestral wisdom. Not because it's trendy, but because the soul remembers what the system tried to make us all forget. Technology plays a part in this too. For the first time in human history, information isn't just gatekept behind stained glass windows or exclusive temples. It's at our fingertips. People can explore spirituality on their own terms. They don't need permission anymore. And when you strip away the dogma, what's left is something incredibly pure, a direct, personal connection to source itself. No performance, no hierarchy, just you and the divine. This is why spirituality is rising again, because the truth can't sleep for centuries, but it never dies. It waits, it whispers, and then one day we remember. And this remembering isn't about rejecting religion. It's about recognizing that your power does not live in a book, in a building, or in someone else's hands. It lives inside of you. That's why no matter how big the institutions, no matter how strict the rules, spirituality will outlast religion, because you can destroy temples, you can destroy books, but you can't burn what's written on the soul. You see, what's happening right now isn't a rebellion. It's a remembrance. They call it New Age because they want to keep you from remembering how powerful you really are. You're not inventing something new. We're coming home to something timeless. And that's what makes this moment so powerful. Spirituality isn't about rejecting everything outside of you. It's about remembering that nothing outside of you is greater than what lives within you. The real temple has always been your body. The real altar has always been your heart. And the real priest has always been your soul. Religion builds walls, it creates separation. Spirituality opens doors, and it creates connection. And when enough people remember this, systems built on fear, shame, and obedience that relied on your forgetfulness start to shake and lose their grip, because you can't enslave a soul who knows it's free. That's why I believe spirituality will outlast religion, not because one is better than the other, but because connection will always outlive control. So if you've ever been told that your path is wrong because it doesn't fit into someone else's box, screw that. Take a breath. Don't take it to heart or as fact. Your soul has been doing this far longer than any institution has existed. This isn't rebellion, this is remembrance, and remembrance is power. So what do you think? Is spirituality a return to something ancient, or do you see it differently? I would love to hear your take. What does spirituality mean to you? And how has it helped you reconnect to your own power within? Feel free to drop your thoughts below or DM me. I'd love to hear your perspective. As always, be more than a label and embody your divine soul.